And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to get started in about 5-10 seconds, just letting some more people join our live session here today, and then we're going to get going. Perfect. Okay, so we are live on Facebook, Instagram, and all the social channels. So time is a preciously rare commodity in sales, and you have to be very careful when deciding how much of it you want to sacrifice just to make a single sale. If you only had to consider the projected customer lifetime value when making these decisions, the math would be pretty simple. However, you also have to take into account other potential benefits and costs of closing a sale. For instance, the exposure that working with your development team, your support team, reaching your CEO or VP of sales or senior leadership, the cost you'll take for those people to help that prospect once you bring them on as a client. Fortunately, while you have to know a great deal about a prospect before you can claim they are promising, it often takes just a sentence or two to really recognize those who are unlikely to actually make the purchase of your product or service. There may result in some missed opportunities, but the amount of time that it's going to save you will be more and made up over time. So you will make up for that loss by telling a client no than if you actually told every client, yes, I really want you to be part of what we're doing and use our product or use our service. So here are some things you need to consider when signing on a new prospect to your client. A, how close are they to your ideal profile? Size, location, geography, revenue, employee count. How close are they to your customer's profile? A prospect's inability to define their need. If they can't define their need, how are you going to define their need? The possibility that the person you are talking to is actually, the independent researcher, or sometimes it actually could be a competitor that's trying to really find out more information about your product or service. Those who constantly demand discounts would be another one. And then lastly, I would say the lack of involvement of other stakeholders. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start with, we're going to go through 5 different ones that will help you guys really in 2020. But number 1, you are not solving their problem. This one should go without saying. But we've all seen sales reps getting carried away by the thrill of the chase of trying to close a deal, oblivious to the damage it might do to their company and the prospects. So if you pick up on the fact that what you're offering is not an adequate solution to their problem, and you're tempted just to sweep it under the rug and try and make the sale anyway, you'd be well advised to consider the impact that deal might have on your customer churn rate, team morale, team reputation, company reputation of your entire company. Therefore, if you feel you are not solving their problem, guess what? It's easy. You're not. So, number 2 is, they are not solving their problem. So the scenario I just described is not the only road leading to a mutually unsatisfactory deal. In fact, a disinterested prospect could do just as much damage as an overly eager salesman. If the person you are talking to is part of a small company or startup, you could probably expect them to be heavily invested in its future and to actually care about its efficiency. On the other hand, if your contract is just one of the multitude of, or your contact is one of the, the multitude of cogs in a large, soulless conglomerate, you shouldn't be surprised if you find them slacking off and trying to rush the deal without actually taking any interest in the deal. So even if you're willing to make up for their lack of enthusiasm or expertise, there is only so much that you can do without the prospect's earnest cooperation. So number 3 today I want to discuss is, and this one I get all the time, they're very difficult to deal with. This one might be a bit more difficult to specify. Naturally, I'm not saying that you should only deal with perfectly polite and accommodating prospects. But we also want to advise you to put up with just any kind of behavior. So what standards should you use? Basically, you need to try to objectively assess the prospects. Are they liable to hurt the deal? Or if the only thing being hurt are your feelings. So if a prospect is too crass for your taste, but at the same time they're honest, industrious, and competent, you sometimes need to actually bite the bullet and power through that discomfort. I would suggest you think twice whether you want to maintain contact with that prospect who insists on micromanaging you from the get-go, are acutely indecisive, are known to be in litigations with previous customers or other people in the industry. I would say are too emotional. I always say, if they're asking too many questions, too much about features, too much about demanding things on the phone, or making sure that they're going to have so much time with your team. If you have that feeling that they're going to be a difficult client, I'm telling you, they're better not to be your client, and they're going to be more hurtful to your business than they are going to be, even if they are providing you some revenue. So, number 4 I want to mention today would be they don't know the first thing about their own company's decision-making process. So we all talk about, get the decision maker on the phone, but sometimes it's not easy. So naturally, this doesn't mean that the first person you reach in a company has to be able and willing to answer all the questions you might have. However, if you've done your due diligence and went up the ladder as far as you could and are still not getting those concrete answers to your question, you wouldn't be at fault for doubting their competence or commitment. This scenario is perhaps more common among, I would say, the smaller businesses and startups who owners are not capable of doing everything on their own, but are still hesitant to delegate some of the more important tasks. Naturally, that is not to say that, businesses of all sizes and profiles are not at least somewhat vulnerable to similar issues. Number 5 today, and this is a good one, is they refuse to provide pertinent information. So this is an interesting one, and the last one I want to talk about today. So if you are sure that you have reached the right person, but they refuse to provide you with the information you absolutely need to move forward, you are most likely facing one of the 3 distinct, almost equally unfavorable possibilities. Like in the previous example we've discussed today, they could simply be incompetent. 2, they could be overly paranoid, which is likely to hinder you at every step of the road with that prospect into becoming a client. They might just be testing the waters with you without any real intention of committing to the purchase. I find that happens a lot. I find competitors sometimes go on to a product, they sign up for a free trial, they get you on a demo just to learn what your roadmap might be, what your pricing might be, etc. So you got to watch out for those people as well. These are all different people that you do not want to be your client. So just kind of go through it and put everything together here, because I like to keep these 15 minutes every week. So recognizing the perfect prospect requires much more scrutiny, experience, and luck than identifying the utterly hopeless ones. While you can't hope to be right 100% of the time, nobody's ever 100% right, you could spare yourself a fair bit of trouble by keeping an eye out for the following. 1, prospects whose problem you are not equipped to solve to a satisfying degree. 2, those who are not willing to do their part. 3, those who are more of an obstacle than a partner for you. 4, those who don't know what they are talking about. And 5, those who don't want to talk about what they don't know. So those are all different things that I really want to discuss with you today. If there's anything that any experience or stories, I love hearing the stories. Any stories you might have of a prospect that you were thinking of bringing on, and the revenue looked so good, it was going to bring on $10,000 more revenue, your MRR, your ARR, all that was going to go up, but you still took them on a client, or you didn't take them on a client. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to share that with the community here, because I know it's something that we first started out AutoClose. Sometimes I would have in me, I'd be like, oh, you know what? The revenue's so good, but this is not going to end well. And it didn't end well. So these are some of the mistakes we learned early on and some of the things I want to talk to you guys about today. So make sure you're choosing the right prospects. You know your prospects, and your prospects also know what you do. So that's what I want to talk to you guys today. Just some other stuff. Next week I will be doing a LinkedIn Live, and I'll be doing it from down south. Today I'm here in Toronto, Canada. We also have our 2020 cold emailing playbook. Now this is launching a week today. If you would like to get a free copy, it's about 114 pages of strategies that you can share with your sales team. In the comment section below, just say, send me a copy, or yes, I'd like your new playbook, your 2020 playbook. Say something, and I'll have my marketing team reach out to you and make sure he DMs you it or sends you an email with that book. Besides that, I hope you guys really got a lot today, because I think it's one of the biggest mistakes people do is bringing on prospects that aren't the right fit for your business. And as I'm trying to mention, and I keep iterating here today, is telling you guys that not every prospect should be a client. You need to learn how to say no, and I hope that really helps. So thanks again. I hope everyone has a great day, a great holiday, and I will see you guys next week for our next LinkedIn Live session. Thanks you guys so much.